Hello, listeners. Welcome to Marie Lives the Horror. This is episode 26 of the series of True Paranormal Ghost Stories. In tonight's episode, we hear an interesting tale of a ghostly visit from a family ancestor. An employee of a salon and spa relays terrifying experiences at their place of work. And a couple of cousins looking for a night of exploration get more than they bargained for when they visit an abandoned railroad track. Tonight's stories are presented in collaboration with Miss Creepy Tales YouTube channel. Make sure to check out the video I did with her on her channel. Link will be down in the description below. So without further ado, step into my horror chamber as we live the horror together. This experience happened to my little sister, female, 16 years old, when she was 3 years old. I learned of it yesterday after my dad, her, and I sat in the living room of our late maternal grand aunt, Eugenia's home, and we were reminiscing about the old times when most of our grandparents were alive and living in this 3-apartment building, and how fun it was to meet for lunch and breakfast with them, and in general, having them and the cousins from Australia around. Those were the best family summers in mine and my sister's memories. And slowly, the conversation shifted into the paranormal sightings our family has gone through, since the women in both sides of the family have some sort of gifts. Dad started sharing his ghost sighting when my sister hesitantly shared this. Please note that the time of the event, it was late in the afternoon and I was present, but I was 8 years old and I did not notice that my sister was behaving weirdly, but I was too busy eating ice cream. The experience goes like this. She was 3 years old and she was too bored to walk on her feet, so she started to crawl and pretend to be a dog, barking at our grandmas when she met them in the hallway towards the first kitchen. Yes, we have 2 kitchens and 2 bathrooms. When my sister grabbed some water and then stole some pie from the fridge and went to the second kitchen to grab a plate. As she was eating, she saw Grand Aunt Eugenia and she was scolded for eating the dessert before dinner. Defeated, my sister returned to the living room and joined in dining room and saw the rocking chair by the second terrace doors, and it was moving, and an old man dressed in a tuxedo and smoking a cigar, sitting on it and rocking back and forth while smoking. My sister recalls she had crawled to him and barked at him, which caused him to laugh at her and motioned for her to sit next to him. My sister then asked him who he was, and he says that he was Grand Uncle Takis, and he was just watching his siblings and his nieces and nephews, and now grandnieces and grandnephews. She sat by him for a while, and she played with some leaves that had been blown in by the open windows and terrace doors all around the house, when she asked him why none of our grandparents introduced him to us. He said that he didn't need to be introduced. He knew all of us and had been watching us. Then my sister stood up and said goodbye to him because she wanted to come outside to play with me. She then said she looked for him around the house but didn't find him. She asked around about Grand Uncle Takis, and everyone ignored her or said that there was no one with that name. Flash forward to last year, when my sister and our mom were going through some old documents and photos when my sister found a photo taken in 1957, and it showed that he was the eldest son of our maternal great-grandma, and he had died from cancer in that very same chair in 1958. And his real name was Christoforos Thomas Bozinekis, and he was Grand Uncle Themios, actual name Ethemios, the male equivalent of the name Eva, older twin brother. All my life I have felt very uncomfortable sitting in that chair because I felt as if I was intruding. I just wanted to share this. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
I have created a second Reddit account to tell you this story. I do not want a ghost story searchable to my account because most media is now traceable to your username, and I can assure you, your career is not enhanced by true ghost stories. I have been empathetic my entire life. When I was a toddler, I would see shadow people who came out of the wall. I called them gorillas, but the gorillas never really did anything bad other than scare me. And throughout my life, I have continued to have many experiences, and this is the most recent. I was riding my motorcycle on an abandoned road. The road led into a state-owned conservation area, and the area was thick forest and brush, a very steep hill on one side, and a river on the other side, both close by the road's surface. And I had been here many years before, because it was a teenage drinking and smoking party spot with a large cave. But the cave had been explosively sealed by the conservation department after a series of violent crimes had occurred there, and I have no idea why I wanted to revisit my teenage party spot. I stopped and viewed the expansive, beautiful scenery, and I looked up at the steep hill, and 100 yards up in a brush, I saw what looked like a floating white plastic bag, or perhaps wispy cotton, floating down through the trees. I watched as it came through the trees slowly, at a walking speed. It floated down directly at me. As it got very close, it appeared more like smoke. The smoke moved from my eye level to the ground level, floated over the top of my shoes, floated slowly up my body, and back up to eye level, 6 foot from my face, and then just disappeared. I looked all around me and it was gone, completely gone. I went home and nothing happened for weeks. Then the knocking started. Knocking generally was in the TV room, and my wife and I just chalked it up to somewhat frantic settling of the house. The knocking went on, and finally I had enough and started yelling at it to stop, and it mostly did. I was concerned that the smoke had followed me home. I Google searched the area of weird smoke and found this article, which is the same location and time frame I was there. This knocking continued, but slowly, considerably. I suspect it slowed because the ghost now knew it had contacted me and that I was aware it was there. The knocking generally followed me from the TV room to a second bedroom, and I often fell asleep in. I slept in this second bedroom because I like to go asleep with a streaming computer on, and my wife doesn't like the TV or computer on when she sleeps. In this second bedroom, the low-level activity continued for 2 years. Then, it went to a higher level. I heard someone walking into the bedroom. I would speak to it, convinced it was my wife, but no one was there. One morning, I awoke contemplating my coming day when it spoke directly into my ear. I repeated the vocal sounds over and over, and I came to the conclusion it was just nonsense gibberish. When it spoke to me, I wasn't scared anyway. This did not feel bad. It was very creepy, but I knew it wasn't evil. After a few weeks later, I had fallen asleep and felt a tremendous pain in my head. It felt like someone stuck a sword through my head, except the pain started in a small area and expanded like an explosion through my head. It lasted only an instant, and I shook it off, started to go back to sleep. Then, the footstep sounds, and a small toy fell off the dresser. Jesus, now I was getting wide awake. I opened the laptop and restarted the show I had fallen asleep to. And in the glow of the computer screen, the spirit started to manifest and become visible. Fuck, I did not sign up for that. I immediately left the room and went to my other bedroom, and it didn't follow. I racked my brain. What could it possibly want? So I prayed. Then it came to me. The pain in my head was what he felt when he shot himself. This ghost needed something from me. It wasn't evil. It just needed something. I suspected I now knew. I went to the bedroom and I told him I was sorry how it ended. I prayed to the Lord, to Jesus, and to Saint Michael. I told him he was forgiven by the Lord and by me, and he should forgive himself now. I told him that his family awaited him and loved him even if he didn't think so. And I personally felt a great relief. And that was 2 weeks ago. There have been no knocks since, and the story is absolutely true.
Okay, so I've worked at this salon for about a year now. I started last June as a receptionist while I was still going to hair school. To give you an idea of the building, it's 4 separate leases in a fairly old building. The main floor is the store. Then behind the reception desk, in the store there are stairs that go down to the salon. You go all the way through the salon and you find a cement staircase going up to the top floors. There's a clothing store that's unrelated on the 2nd floor, and on the 3rd floor is the spa as well as the corporate office we use and the staff lounge area. For the first few months I worked there, I never really experienced anything. So this girl I used to work with, she quit several months back unrelated to this, but she was telling me some of the shit that goes on specifically in the spa. This is the first whiff of anything I've ever heard regarding spooky shit at my work. There was a new girl starting and she was opening the spa. You enter the spa through the back cement staircase, and the front door the guest enters through is locked from the inside. So this girl is opening the tills, and suddenly she turns and there's a slender, pale woman standing there in a red swooping sun hat. She's obviously confused because the front door is still locked. But she looks at the computer screen to see if there's an appointment booked super early. And as she's asking the woman what she is here for, she looks back up from the screen and the red hat woman is gone. The new girl apparently never came back after that shift. So apparently there is a spa ghost that many people have seen, heard, and felt. She wears a red hat. Since starting, I've also began working in the spa. The spa is honestly really old. It's also 2 floors, so there is a metal spiral staircase that you can see from the reception desk that goes down to the petty stations and waxing rooms. I often have heard footsteps coming up the stairs only to have no one arrive at the top. The reception desk is also behind a wall, so when you're walking to the front from the back rooms, you cannot see anything. The spa is not super well renovated, so sound carries a lot. I've also often heard clicks on the keyboard and mouse, then rounded the corner and no one is at the desk. To be honest, the spa lady seems real chill. I think she's just stuck. She doesn't have a negative presence. Nonetheless, she still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Now, let's move our focus down to the store. I usually work with my coworker / homie, and it's a common thing for us to be standing behind the desk, chatting to one another, and we will hear a single footstep behind us on the stairs. You look behind you and no one is there. Honestly, just a lot of unexplained noises go on behind us in the staircase. Super unsettling, right? Enter COVID-19. We were closed for more than 3 months, which is the longest the salon / spa has been closed since opening over 30 years ago. We reopened from the virus on May 26. Before we were actually open, all the reception team had to come in to go back through the books and call all the guests that have missed appointments due to the closure. So I worked 2 shifts of calling people back. On the second shift, chill. I was working with my manager and this other guy as well. So anyways, we had the salon open while we were in the store because it has the only washroom. So at one point, he went downstairs to get something from the printer. I heard something behind me in the stairwell, so I turned around thinking he needed a pen or something. At the same time, the phone rang. So I whipped around for like 2 seconds. Then the phone rang, so I whipped back around, but my manager already picked up the phone. I turned back around to see what he needed, and to my astonishment, he was way down in the salon at the printer. This confused the fuck out of me because I was sure I saw his face directly behind me. For the rest of my shift, I shoved all thoughts out of my head. When I got home that evening, the thoughts of what I saw kept coming back, and finally I came to the conclusion I absolutely did not see my coworker's face. He is quite pale and blonde. The man's face I saw was dark, all over, just dark. So I drew his face. Needless to say, it's the scariest thing I've ever drawn. I've attached the photos to my page. Anyways, over the next few days as the salon opens, word traveled real quick of what I saw and what I drew. Until the salon manager comes up to me and starts telling a truly awful story of the son of the architect who had constructed the building. His name was Ryan Jenkins of Calgary, Alberta. His dad, the architect, was Dan Jenkins of Calgary, Alberta. Now, if you want to fact check me, go and Google his name. Anyway, turns out Ryan had committed a horrific murder in 2009. He had married this woman in California, and through a series of events, he murdered this woman and mutilated her body in an effort to have the body unidentifiable. The T is what she was identified by her breast plant serial numbers. Anyways, so he actually wound up committing suicide the same week he killed her in Hope, British Columbia in a motel, after he had fled across the border back to Canada. The motel manager who had found him hanging in his room described it as looking into the devil's eyes, and that he would never forget that face. The salon manager tells me this story and tells me to look him up, to see if I drew his face. I Googled his name and I immediately exited the tab. That was the motherfucking face that I saw. I swear to God. So the following shift that I go in, I'm chanting this in my head that I'm not scared, that I'm strong and you can't touch me. I worked alone that day, and I heard many unpleasant things behind me, including a hand slapping the security gate that hangs a little low between the salon and the desk. At the end of the night, I mustered up the courage to say goodnight as I was leaving, and I heard 3 loud, distinct footsteps coming up the stairs. And girl, I ran out the door. Since then, my homie/coworker and I have had the printer printing random computer mumbo jumbo that it does often. It prints random things like hearts and filled in smiley faces and card suits like spades. We often have wondered if it's someone trying to communicate. One day, we got so many. The weird computer speak printouts, and on one page, all in caps, there's one word. It just read, help. So yeah, my work is super haunted, and I saw a murderer's face in the stairwell. For some reason, he decided this is a great place to reside since his passing. And yeah, super duper cool. There are actual photos of him in front of the building back in 1990. His dad's architecture firm used to reside in the office space that we now also rent. I didn't even get into what goes on in the staff room on the top floor. Several people have been up in the staff room after the alarm has been set over in the office spaces. They've heard doors slamming, voices, light switches clicking on, and one girl even has heard whistling. I have also experienced something up there where we made it mad. To be honest, looking back, this was very foolish of us, but it was a slow day in the spa, and a girl and I had brought tarot cards. I think we stirred some shit up there, because at the end of the day, we are in the staff room chatting. From the hallway, I just heard a plastic container go flying and smack into the wall. Sounded like someone threw it hard. Needless to say, we ran. The other night, after my work friend/coworker and I were grabbing a drink across the street from my work at a rooftop patio, we finished work at like 10 p.m. The sunset was really beautiful, so we were looking in the direction of our job, the sunset, and we just see a hallway light go on the top floor. No other offices or other hallway lights came on. It also stayed on until we paid our bill. I wonder if something knew we were looking in that direction.
I was 22 years old and just moved in with my cousin. We had a band, so of course, we tried to party hard. That being said, we always had a house full of bandmates hanging out. One spring night, when we were done practicing and chilling in the living room, I was sitting on the couch across my cousin, who was passed out on his recliner. All of a sudden, he springs up from his recliner, looks at me and says, "We've got to go to the train trestle now." The train trestle was an old, abandoned, torn-up railroad track that led to a wooden, still intact, wooden bridge over the river. We grew up in a small South Carolina town, and there wasn't much to do, so we would go hang out at places like that to drink and hang out. Back to that night, when my cousin sprang up and said we've got to go to the trestle now, I thought maybe he was joking or really baked, but he kept saying it and was dead serious. The trestle was 30 minutes away and it had to be after midnight, but this was so crazy that I had to go. So we start heading out the door and all our friends outside smoking ask where the hell we're going. I told them what my cousin said and they couldn't pass it up either. So around 6 of us piled in my cousin's 93 red Ford Bronco and headed out. The 30-minute ride to the trestle was completely silent, except for a few drunken, "What the hell are we doing?" or my cousin kept saying, "I don't know, I just feel like we gotta go." We turn down the gravel road that leads to the abandoned train trestle, follow it up like a half a mile, make a left turn, and we are looking at the trestle about at our 11 o'clock vintage point. We all get out of the Bronco and walk towards the bridge. We don't even make it 10 steps when a faint light appears in the distance, and it keeps getting brighter. The light keeps coming, and now it's crossing the bridge. I remember one of my friends fearfully asking, "What the hell is going on?" And the light keeps getting brighter and brighter, and then I finally comprehend what I'm seeing. It's a train. The train was bright, white or gray, completely silent, and passing from our right to left within 20 yards. Then out of nowhere, the train slows to a stop. At this point, I'm in such disbelief and all I can do is stare. I know it sounds crazy, but I swear, the next thing that happens is people start walking off the train. They are wearing what appeared to my 20-year-old brain to be old clothing. I remember top hats on the men who were grabbing the bags and the women in big dresses departing the cars. And next, it gets a little fuzzy because it's been 17 years, but the people just vanished, and then it was completely silent train starts moving again and slowly disappears to our left. After the train disappeared, we were in complete shock and the reality sets in. We start freaking out and trying to figure out what the hell just happened. I can't remember who yelled it, but someone screamed, "Let's get the fuck out of here." We all bolted to the Bronco and tore out of there. 17 years later, and I remember it like it was yesterday.
So basically, I live with my fiancé and my 8-month-old son. Our apartment building was originally a very, very old house that had to be torn down and refurbished before anyone could live in them. When me and my fiancé first decided we were going to live in the flat, I was 8 months pregnant and everything seemed normal until I gave birth to my son and brought him back to the apartment. Originally, it started off with nightmares, and that's when I started feeling like someone was watching us, and it felt like there was a lot of tension in the air. Slowly, feelings started to get more intense, and feelings have started to become more real. My son turned 6 months old, and it was time to move him out of our bedroom and into his own. This is when those feelings turned into sounds. For example, we heard bangs and knocks, but we put that down to noisy neighbors until one day when I was in my living room with my son, while my partner was in the shower down the hall with the bathroom door locked. All of a sudden, I heard my partner shouting my name followed by, "Help me." So I ran down the hall, knocked on the bathroom door, and asked if he was okay. He was, so I asked him why he shouted, "Help me." And he said that he did not say anything. So I pretended it didn't happen, until the week after, when the same thing happened to my partner when I was in the shower. I explained that I hadn't said anything, and that was exactly the same thing that had happened to me. A week or two passed, And that was when I started to notice that doors I had left open had suddenly shut, and lights I had turned off had turned on by themselves. My son, now 8 months old, has started getting what seems to be nightmares or night terrors, where he's asleep and he's panicking, and sometimes is like he's awake. What you need to know about my son is, he has never been one to wake up in the middle of the night, or wake up early in the morning wanting a bottle or cuddles. He likes his sleep too much. So when this started happening, it was scaring me because it's completely out of character for him. He has now started to stare off into corners and walls, and sometimes he'll laugh to himself or he'll start to cry. It's really strange. Now, if I knock on any of the countertops, sometimes I get knocks back. Last Saturday, I was in the living room on my own, and my son was in bed. All my windows and doors were shut and locked, when all of a sudden, my bedroom door had slammed shut, temporarily knocking the lighting off. When I went in the room to see what had happened, my current had moved. I got so scared, I went and got my best friend, because she's a neighbor, and asked her to wait with me until my fiance got home from being out with his friends. 2 days after that, my phone charger wire was dangling from the socket, and all of a sudden I watched it move on its own. To be honest, I know it sounds like there's a lot happening, and to a lot of people, me including, there is only one explanation. There is a spirit/ghost, haunting, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm just not sure if it's that or some other reasonable explanation for why this is happening. But it has scared me so much that my son and fiance are now moving out. Does anyone have any thoughts about what might be happening?
Before I start, I'd like to say that I have had practically zero paranormal experiences in my 23 years of life. And although I do believe in the paranormal, I am very skeptical when it comes to believing that these experiences below are supernatural. I am mostly interested in seeing if other people here have experienced similar things happen in their home. So, as of 2020, there has been weird activities in my home. I've had a total of 3 experiences so far, in which 2 of them are just noises that I've heard, and 1/3 is an actual visual experience. To start off with, the first experience I had was one day when I had just sat down by my computer to play some games, when I heard a guitar, which was behind me. It played one faint note by itself, and I didn't see the string move, but I know 100% it was the sound of a note being played on my guitar. I was speculating for a moment if I had maybe hit something that would cause the guitar to move, hence playing a note on accident, but I don't think that's the case, and no way I would be able to do that. My guitar always rests in the same location, and I have never had anything like that happen before. It was just weird. The second experience I had was one day when I was sitting on my sofa browsing on my phone, when my cabinet next to me suddenly made a loud bang and shook. At first, I was really surprised and confused because it happened out of nowhere, but I couldn't explain it, so I simply just ignored it. However, shortly thereafter, it happened again, Some bang, same shaking. I just don't know what to believe. The third and most crazy experience happened when I was watching TV. I was watching TV when I noticed that my cornflakes box suddenly moved on its own, like if somebody were to take their hand and pinch it for a second. This one felt really crazy because I could actually see it move briefly on its own. I just don't know what to make of this, to be honest. And the weirdest part is that all of this happened in a very short time span, and since then, it has been quiet, and nothing abnormal has happened since.
When I was younger, between 3 to 5 to be exact, I had 2 imaginary friends named Bobby and Jolly. I would sit in front of the mirror in my bedroom for hours, talking to them. As time went on, weird stuff started happening in my home. Things would, according to my parents, fly off the shelves. There would be tapping sounds and lights would turn on, etc. One day, water started leaking out of the light fixture in the ceiling. My parents called a plumber, and it turned out there was no pipe near the fixture, or any pipe in the house leaking at all. Which makes sense because why would your pipe be so close to your light fixture? I started consistently waking up in the middle of the night, crying, claiming the goblins are biting my toes. To my parents' horror, my feet would have bite marks on them, and they would be bleeding. The doctor equated it to me possibly biting my own toenails in my sleep. Things only got worse when one day I was sitting on the couch watching cartoons with my mom. I turned to her and out of the blue, at 4 years old, said, "Mom, Bobby and Jolly told me to kill you." My parents sent me to my grandma's. She's super Christian, for a couple of days, as they were scared. On the first night there, I had fallen asleep. There was a mirror in the corner of her room, and around 3 a.m., I apparently whipped up, pointed to her mirror, saying, "Bobby and Jolly are here." My grandma said some prayers, did whatever Christians do when they think there's a ghost, and I went back to sleep. My parents sold the house 6 months later. When we left, I never spoke of Bobby and Jolly again. There was a family who moved into the house after us, and the boy who lived there refused to sleep in the room that once was mine. Hello, listeners. Thank you for listening to tonight's episode of True Paranormal Ghost Stories, as you live the horror with me. A special thanks to Miss Creepy Tales for collaborating with me on this episode. Be sure to stop by and check out her channel. If you have a story that you would like to submit, check the description down below and send them over to my email. Do not forget to subscribe and click the notification bell to keep up with future episodes. Thanks for listening. I am your host, Marie Lives the Horror.